Welcome to the Volunteer Youth Worker Podcast. Youth ministries rise and fall on the volunteers. So we are here to encourage and equip you. Join the conversation as we tackle the practical questions you are asking so you can help the next generation know Jesus.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Volunteer Youth Worker Podcast. We've got Sid and Lisette, and today we're continuing our conversation that we had started about small groups that get out of control. Now, Sid, have you ever been in a small group situation where things get out of control? Yes or no?
Oh my word, yeah. And I remember it so clearly. In fact, now let me be honest. I want
to know if you ever caused a group to go out of control, either as the leader or as the young person. Because I'm sure there's also been that kind of experience.
Yeah, now you got me on the spot, and I'm gonna figure it out. And the answer is absolutely yes, I have, especially when I was younger in leadership. I caused all sorts of problems in our groups. I get distracted fast. I want to be funny. I want to be the center of attention. And now we are off center big time. And the point leader is not pleased with me. So trust me, this is a yes. This is a hard yes. I think about camp, almost getting kicked out of camp, by the way, as a cabin leader because of these types of situations. It's a hard yes. And then I think of my kids, you know, that I've worked with who are just nuts and out of control. And I caused it to be out of control at times as well because I didn't create clear expectations. Heck, I didn't even know what I was doing going in. And so it was off the rails fast. And then I would over adjust and be that guy that's booting kids out left, right, and center. And so then, we're losing kids from the ministry. And, it's just, hey, I've made every possible mistake on this one I think that you can make. So I'm here. I stand guilty as charged. But we're going to see if we can be helpful as a result of it.
Yeah, we're gonna be very helpful. Okay, Lisette, let me throw to you. Small groups getting out of control. That's ever happened in your world at all?
Never. I've only led girl perfect groups.
Yeah, as word. Guy groups, we're used to those crazy middle school boy groups.
Hey, wait a second.
Girl groups are always fine, right?
I just heard the story from Lisette, and we don't have time for this story, when she led her group at camp in defiance of the program director to do raids in the middle of the night. You led a full revolt at the camp.
I did lead a full revolt, so I'm not innocent of anything.
So
I'm not innocent of anything.
This all comes from lived experience, which is
exactly.
100%.
A great space. So listen, as a volunteer youth worker, you're listening, and we know that when you're leading, your group can get out of control. So there's some things you can do in the moment, and we've covered that in a previous episode, so you can check that out. And we've also actually covered a number of different things. Maybe I should throw a few different links, because we've got a bunch of podcasts on in the moment what you can do to make some changes, course corrections to your group. But let me ask the question, are there ways that you can actually prevent your group from getting out of control? Are there tools, tactics, ideas, strategies? Lisette and Sid, we're here for your wisdom so that our groups can be better, not just in the moment, but in future weeks, because we're going to set them up for success.
Yeah, we are.
Let me start. Lisette, do you want to get us going here?
I want to set everything up for success whenever humanly possible. Here's what we're just going to say. Before you walk into any small group, do you know why? Do you know why you're walking into that small group? Have you thought about what your role is and what the kids' role is and what you hope to have happen? And I think the biggest thing is we often just walk into small group time because you're supposed to, but you don't have anything beyond that. And so I think step one is actually establishing an understanding of why are you doing small groups? What is your role? What do you hope the kids get out of it? What creates an ideal setup? And I think that's the first thing, is actually defining what that is, what those expectations are on you, on the group time.
Well, maybe we should take a minute and actually answer that one, because there's lots of folks that are like, well, I'm there to keep the kids safe, maybe get through the question list, and maybe they learned about Jesus in the process. So there's some confusion on what is the why? Why am I here? And hopefully some ministries are articulating that, but in case they're not, could we suggest a couple of directions, Sid?
Yeah, I think that's really great. Let me just and I know, Joe, we want to get right to the practical, but I do want to say something about, what's our why. First of all, I think that has to come down from kind of the point leader in your youth ministry. You have to have some direction from the point leader, some kind of a commitment to say, hey, this is what we expect of all of our groups, some overarching principles so that you can live under that. So you're not kind of stranded out there on an island by yourself. Because if you have an expectation for your small group, let's say, but the organization doesn't have that expectation, it can be really difficult for you to be able to follow up and carry on, especially if things get difficult. The other principle I want to just suggest is that there's, I think, and Lisette, I'd love to hear what you think on this, that different seasons actually have different expectations for that group and different stages of development. So for me, if I'm like in September, I'm thinking a lot about community building in my small group, like September, October, November, new kids, especially if it's like new in junior high or new in senior high. I want to make, I want to be really solid there. I'm also thinking if it's like grade 6 boys, I'm thinking my discussion time is significantly smaller than my grade 12 boys or grade 12 girls is probably. So I just want to say that there should be some macro kind of like guidelines and standards, but then kind of like smaller on the ground can shift a little bit from season to season and stage of development to stage of development. And your ministry, by the way, will have a different commitment. So some ministries will have a real commitment to going deep in the scriptures, right? So they'll be serious about doing a Bible study time there. It might be more inductive. It might require some strong preparation, maybe even homework. There's ministries that are committed to that. That's wonderful. You need to know if that's what your ministry is. And then you're going to help form the ears of your kids with that type of expectation. You're going to have some ministries that are heavy on just care, so this is more about care, shared experience. That's wonderful. And then there'll be ministries that are about like prayer. Like this is about processing what's taking place and how do we pray together. I think, Lisette, we would advocate and suggest that all three of those are really important for a healthy small group. This is about like more than just that program. You always hear us say that, and all three of those will be a part in it. And probably, again, like we said, in most ministries, there's going to be like varied times, varied ages that will require leaning into any of these types of things. I think what's really key, and Lisette, I think you're going to go here right away, is it's primarily, I think the key expectations to set is how do we treat each other no matter which focuses we have within our small group. And I think we can talk about that, right, Lisette, in our ministries and expectations of how we actually treat each other and function in these spaces.
100%. And I think that's where the values, right? Like there's some things you're going to contextualize. There's things you have to know, like age and stage of your kids. What you expect of certain kids is different than what you expect. But I think there's some fundamental things that we can expect or set up in every environment, right? Like it's general respect for one another, kindness, an expectation that we're there with purpose, right? We're not just there to hang out. We're actually there with a purpose in mind. There's some of those things that I think you can set up. And I am mocked both as a parent and as a leader for repetitive language, but I think I use it because I think it's really effective, is to just repeat things a lot. And I would say some of this stuff, what we're talking about, and depending on what your point leader and your church has asked for and what is needed in your small group to emphasize, I would encourage you to say some of those things every single week. To remind them why they're there and what the whole point of you being together is, because we really believe, and we've talked about this, we did another series about how to maximize your program. Everything comes to this moment where we hope you as an adult who loves Jesus in the life of a kid can help disciple them because you have great relationship. And we want to facilitate a great experience in that small group for your relationship to go forward. And so we want you to set yourself up for success in that.
So maybe we can offer some ideas on what that sounds like, because I'm 100% with you. I love the repetition. I think oftentimes we assume people know or they remember what this group is about, but gosh, there's new kids in our group from week to week, or kids that have been missing for a while. So reinforcing that, reminding that, so helpful. And it made me think, as you said that, Lisette, my wife is better at this than I am, but she has a question when our kids are not teenagers yet. They're 6, 4, and 2, but when they hit each other, which happens unfortunately too often in our household, she goes and she asks, "What are hands for?" And then they now know hands are for helping, not hurting, and or helping and hugging, or something like that. I don't remember, but they do, and they just immediately, boom, they've got it. And so like there's this instinct to, if we can instill core truth in a simple, succinct kind of way, it really does make it easy to memorize and then to recall kind of when we need it. So maybe Lisette, just walk us through. You got a group. It's a group maybe that you've been meeting with for a bit. How do you start that group to set those expectations early in the time?
Sure. I will probably say something like this every week. Like, hey, I'm so glad we get to hang out again. You guys are some of my favorite people. Even if I haven't met you before, you have now become my favorite person because you're part of this group. And I just want you to know what we're going to do for the next few minutes. We want to know what's going on in your world because we care about your world. We want to talk a little bit about God because that's what we're here for. We believe there's a God who loves you. And we've just talked about some cool things. And so we're going to talk about them a little bit more. Then we're going to pray together. If you haven't prayed before, that's totally okay. But we believe prayer changes everything. So we're going to pray together for a few minutes. And while we do all of this together, we're going to try to listen to one another. We're going to try to care about one another. You can disagree. That's totally allowed. And what happens in group stays in group unless we need somebody to help us outside a group to help make somebody safer or better. It's probably something I would say every week.
That's awesome. That's really helpful. We should, I guess we're recording. I'm like, we should have recorded that. Oh, yeah, recording it. But we should almost like have it like printed on a sheet. So like, if you want to just use it verbatim, by all means, use that line with your group. So just hit the back, 15, 20 seconds button a couple times and you can go with that. Sid, is there anything else that you would add in your groups when you're chatting at the beginning?
Yeah, we would kind of frame it like, hey, here's what you can expect from me. Here's what I want to. This is what I expect from you, and this is what you should expect from each other. And so we would.
How would you say it? Like, say it like the group is listening.
Yeah. So, hey guys, here's what you can expect from me. I'm going to respect you. I want to hear what you have to say. When I've asked you a question or someone has asked you a question, I'm going to be a person who's listening to you. What you can expect from each other is exactly the same. That in the same way that you would want people to like listen and respect you when you're talking, we will listen and respect each other when they're talking. And so we would frame it that way. And then sometimes, depending on our group, so first of all, we would define what respect is in our environment, again, and the different levels of respect. And then sometimes we'd have to get really specific. So for my guys, we just had a consistent habit, of course, for our boys where they would just like attack each other. And that's kind of pretty normal adolescent male behavior. So then our phrase that we kept using was words of life, not death. That became ours. So we would say, hey, this is what we are going to expect from each other. We are just going to use words of life, not death. And then for us, we used various forms of trying to emphasize that. So wall sits became our thing for a little bit, where if you weren't using words of life, you were using words of death, you got wall sit, and everyone started to police each other. So there was a bit of chaos, of course, in the moments with those. We expected that, especially from our junior high guys. But eventually it stuck in our brains that that's how we were functioning. And it still happens today. I was in a conversation with a couple of high school guys who'd been like part of our group when they were in junior high. And just the other day, they were like, Sid, words of life, not death. And so it still pops up as something that's sticking in the mind. Anytime you can get those kind of phrases, you know what I mean? The way that you implement them is important, but those types of phrases stick. They help. They make it really clear. And again, I think what we're trying to do, like we know this is a major leadership principle. If you're leading something, your job is to create clear expectations. That's really like such an important part of what you do. So, make sure you do that. And there'll be seasons when you'll have to re-clarify expectations or even reframe them depending on what's kind of taking place in your small group.
Yeah, so this is really good because I think for a lot of us that are leading these groups, recognizing we've got the ability to kind of set this tone, to be really clear up front, is going to be, I think, like a huge win in just trying to curb it from getting out of control a little bit. Yeah. So number one, we need to know why we're here, what this is about. And then number two, you have to be able to communicate it clearly. I think even practicing these kinds of things with other leaders before you get into the group can be helpful if you haven't done this kind of thing before, because you don't want to get it like to your group this week and be like students had one expectation of that, just kind of roll in and like just everything happens. And all of a sudden you're like, I listen to a podcast now and like here I'm going to do it completely different. You kind of want to just be gentle as you're getting into that flow, but I think that's going to be really helpful and really worthwhile. It's interesting. Some of the groups that I've led, it's always unique to find out that most students, if they haven't been to your group before, they haven't experienced this kind of setting before. Like, this is new for them. And to be honest, it's maybe even new for you as a leader. Where else in your world do you sit around in a circle and have conversations about deep topics, where you're trying to like exchange, the conversation ball back and forth type of thing, even metaphorically, and like do that as a grade 7 boy, like where somebody's like all eyes are on them and they're intently listening. So this is fairly interesting and a new concept for certainly lots of people. So setting it up is worthwhile.
Yeah, Jared, one thing I'd like to say just about setup too. If you, let's say, so for us in our youth ministry, respect was like a key word for us. And then what we would also do is we had basic frameworks for our leaders to work in, but we would also allow or ask our leaders to let kids define respect as well. So, hey, what do you think it means to you to feel respected in this space? And if they could actually come up with some of those definitions and then we could stack hands and agree on them, then it was really helpful when it came to like just kind of managing that space again. Hey, remember you guys, we actually agreed this was how we were going to roll. Yeah, good. Okay, let's just redial back in on that. And I think, again, you can always like gel, sell, or tell when it comes to ideas. And if you can get them to like if we can create some of those together, not all of them, by the way, but give categories within which they can help read or define some of those ideas, it can help them take ownership of it as a team as well, as a group as well.
Yep. Okay. So in light of those things, are there other things that we want to add to the mix, thinking about how we can actually make sure our groups don't get derailed by setting them up for success? Lisette, anything else that you would impart upon us?
Well, I love this because what was good about this is we all said the same thing. We just said it so differently. And so much of this is about you finding your own voice. I would say I always encouraged our leaders to write a few notes that you repeated that are in your own words so that you knew what you wanted to say every week. But then I really think the next thing is you kind of just got to uphold it right away. And so, Sid, I love that you were talking about wall sits. I had to get like stuffed animals that we threw at each other that you only talked when you were holding that. We've just had different things over the years, depending on who it was. Like you didn't get coffee if this was senior girls, right? Like whatever it is. But I think finding a way to just say, no, what we said matters. And I intend to uphold that. I think if you show that very quickly, people respect that because they trust that we're going to do that for one another. And that's what creates safety, is a confidence that you say what you mean, right? Or you mean what you say. So this is one of those things where I think as a leader, you have to say my yes means yes, my no means no. And I have to be clear about what I'm saying. And so that's why they have to be reasonable. You can't expect a, 11-year-old boy to sit for 45 minutes patiently. Not going to happen. But set realistic expectations, trust what you're trying to do, and then uphold it.
That's really good.
I love that. Sid, anything else that you want to add to the mix? Thinking about how can we keep our group
really good
from getting out of control?
Yeah, I think it's really good. And I just, I guess, we're continuing to give different ways to kind of look at our lens to see through. I'm always also just trying to differentiate between what I would call like annoying behavior and inappropriate behavior. And, annoying behavior is often on me. Hey, I got to let that go. I'm at this stage of my life, right, where I'm a little bit older. Lisette, I am a little bit older. So behavior that I might find annoying now actually isn't inappropriate, and nor is it annoying maybe for the Sid when he was 25 years old. And I just got to own that, prepare myself for the moment, be okay with that. But it's really good to make sure that you know the difference there, because it's going to change how, the expectation, again, you place on your kids. We should expect, again, our younger kids to be fidgety, to not have concentration to the same amount of time, to not go as deep as we would like them to, so just, and if you're not sure what would be an appropriate expectation, again, talk to your point leader. And ask them what they think is appropriate for that space and that environment, or talk to a parent. A lot of parents will give you some good insight on that as well.
Teachers are really good for this kind of thing too.
Oh, yeah,
they're managing classrooms. And so if you got teachers that chat them up, and just to get to the developmental, because it is interesting when you study the developmental stages of adolescence and realizing like, oh, even just cognitively, some kids aren't able to process, whatever, we're talking about it at some level. So worth digging into for sure.
Yeah, and I want to say just one more thing, just as we're ending here. If you're having trouble managing your room, the more, again, and we talked about this on one of our podcasts, Jared and Lisette, the more time you connect with kids outside of program moments, probably the better chance you'll have their trust inside program moments. And so I'm finding if I have a group of kids that are struggling, they're struggling with gelling, there's all those kind of things, or listening to me, I'm like, oh, I need to look for some relational moments with these kids where they don't feel like it's a classroom or a program or a management environment, but it's actually relational. And it's amazing what a difference that can make in these other spaces as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Cool. And any last words, Lisette, before we let people go?
Just want to encourage you, keep doing what you're doing. What you do matters. And as a leader, you get to set the tone. So trust yourself as the adult in the space to create the space to be what God needs it to be. So keep on.
Amazing. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time over here on the Volunteer Youth Worker podcast.